What's up, guys? Nick here from Nick's Reptile World, and today we are going to be talking about mixed and same species cohabitation between reptiles and amphibians. Cohabitation of reptiles and amphibians in captivity. Does it work? Well, to start off, let's talk about what is cohabitation. Cohabitation in a captive animal setting is when two or more animals are kept inside the same enclosure at all times. And for us to be able to discuss this topic properly, I'm going to be splitting this video into two main topics. Those topics being same species cohabitation and mixed species cohabitation. So, does your reptile or amphibian need a friend because they're lonely? Well, the answer is no, not really. It's a bit more complicated than that, but it's best not to anthropomorphize your reptiles and amphibians. So try not to give them human traits, because keep in mind these aren't humans. They're not related to mammals at all. So the first thing that I really want to cover is same species cohabitation. Is it a possibility? The answer to this question is yes, but also no. So reptiles and amphibians can be found as being able to be housed with their own species, but not with other species of animals. So an appropriate example of this would include, having multiple different gecko species of the same species, like crested geckos or mourning geckos together in the same enclosure. Another example is dart frogs. They can be housed together. White's tree frogs, they can be housed together. Fire-bellied toads, they can be housed together, etc. It kind of goes on. Based off of different species. Not every species is the same. Keep in mind, in these enclosures, the male to female ratios in these enclosures are usually more in favor of females to avoid any sort of male territorial dominance, thus leading to hurt or potentially dead animals or just stressed out animals in general. So if you are looking to mix the same species together, make sure you do extensive research on that specific species before you decide to add more than one of the same species inside of your animal's enclosure. You do not want to experience what would happen if you put your male bearded dragons or potentially even female bearded dragons together, making them more of a, they're more of a solitary creature. They're going to attack each other. All in all, you plan to cohabitate two of the same species, make sure that enclosure is at least twice the normal size needed for a single adult of that specific animal species. And with that, you're going to need 2 times the normal amount of hides, foliage, and general things for them to escape to. So when the animal is trying to flee or retreat away from the other animal, they're not going to be stressed out because they have a place to escape and get out of a difficult situation. This can exponentially solve the issue of stressing your animals out with the introduction of another animal in the same enclosure. For my crested geckos, I usually house 2 to 3 geckos in one enclosure entirely for breeding purposes. I don't do this because they're, my pets. I mean, they are my pets, but they are my breeders, so I have it set up my own specific way based off of what I plan to do my breeding. So now if I were to keep all my animals just as pets, they would each have their own enclosure because you don't want to be reproducing your pet geckos, but that's a whole nother story. Mixed species cohabitation is kind of where I lose a lot of people, because you'll hear a lot of mixed feelings on this subject. However, I'm going to give you my unbiased opinion based off of individual keepers' past history, keepers that I've talked to in the community, so their history attempting to keep these species together. And I believe that mixed species along with same species cohabitation is something that can be successful, but it can also be very unsuccessful based off of many different factors, especially space, species, sex, enclosure setup. The list can go on. So this year I did extensive research on cohabitation of black and white Argentine tegus with redfoot tortoises, since for the most part these two don't really predate on each other in the wild as of recorded history. And I successfully housed together my tegu Motley and my redfoot tortoise Shelly together. So I monitored them on a daily basis with checks every couple of minutes or so to ensure nothing would go wrong between the two, which I never even saw. I actually saw the two cuddling together on multiple different occasions. I don't know if this is for warmth or whatever the reason is, but it was incredible to be able to see that happen in, you know, real time. It was really cool. But unexpectedly, Shelly did pass away after a couple of months of my care due to impaction. But I believe that has a lot to do with the care given by her previous owners before I took her in. They were very inexperienced, but anyways, that's a whole nother story. An example of mixed species cohabitation that I can definitely use is dart frogs and small lizards like brown anoles or mourning geckos. So this is a very common thing in the community that is debated whether or not you can keep, you know, mourning geckos with dart frogs, because they eat the same food. One's arboreal, one is more terrestrial, so on and so forth. So these animals both have been, you know, talked about being easily cohabitated in enclosures like an 18 by 18 by 24 or larger, depending on the number of species. However, this is just not enough space to be able to keep your animals from becoming territorial towards each other, especially due to the fact that they consume the same food. They will be competing for resources like food and water. This is just a fact. And I think that we can see how this specific situation of animal cohabitation in captivity just doesn't realistically work. However, that does raise the question of why do paludariums that house, you know, fish and snails that are, you know, cohabitating with a reptile or an amphibian, you know, why does that work so well? So that comes down to the same things, you know, species, space, environment setup, sex, so on and so forth. In the end, what you decide to do with your animals is entirely on you, the individual keeper. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you can or can't do something, but if you want to keep the safety and the health of your animals at best interest, then please do your research on the specific species you are trying to cohabitate. Go to, you know, the different zoos have large cohabitation setups because they are required to have massive setups for them to work. Now, there's a whole bunch of different factors that, you know, lay into both same species and mixed species cohabitation. You know, species, space, sex, environment, you know, enclosure size, the list can go on. You know, it all comes down to the individual's ability to monitor these animals properly, give them enough space, and ensure that nothing is an issue between those animals. Because, like it or not, my opinion, based off of every person in the community that I have spoken to that has attempted mixed species or same species cohabitation with different species across the board between reptiles and amphibians, I honestly, it can be done. It can be done, and it can be done horribly wrong. But that all comes down to you. Make sure you do the research. Anyways, guys, I'm Nick from Nick's Reptile World. I hope you guys enjoyed the videos. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. Any other recommendations for some videos so you guys might want to see, please feel free to reach out. Peace.